The 2025 NFL draft is in the books. So, how did the Broncos do? Did they find any day one starters? And what grade will we give them for this 2025 draft? I've got answers coming up next. Seven players picked with 7 draft picks. That was the original amount. And then George Payton went crazy and made all kinds of different trades for this draft. We'll get into some of that stuff. But really, what I want to talk about here is the players that were picked, where they were selected, if there are any day one starters, and then ultimately I'll give a grade. And I'd love for you, of course, to give a grade here in the comment section on YouTube so I can circle back and see what kind of report card we're talking about. So what the Broncos did, well, with round 1, pick number 20, it was Jahdae Barron from University of Texas. That was a bit of a wild card. I know I didn't have them picking a cornerback with the first pick they had in the draft. Not sure you did. And if you did, I probably think you're lying anyway, because nobody had Jahdae Barron being the first pick for the Denver Broncos. Now, I'm not really upset about it. It's a bit of a wild card, but if the kid can play and they thought he was the best talent at that spot, you could still get a running back that they liked, which they believe they did, then I'm all right with the pick. You might have just paired Pat Surtain and Jahdae Barron as a top cornerback tandem for about the next decade. And if that's the case, why are we going to get mad over a 20th overall selection? Where I think it really gets interesting is days 2 and 3. And into the second round, where, like I said, there was a trade made with the Panthers, there was a trade made with the Lions, and the Broncos didn't get on the clock from originally at 51 to 60 when they finally made the pick of running back R.J. Harvey from UCF. And maybe the name sounds familiar. Remember watching a Buffaloes game early in the fall where it was the Buffs versus UCF and R.J. Harvey. Now, CU won the game, and they won by 20-something points, if I remember right. But R.J. Harvey had 169 total yards on about 20 touches, catching and receiving, had the one receiving touchdown where he took it down the sideline and nobody was going to catch him. So you saw R.J. Harvey firsthand get his against the Colorado Buffaloes, but still lose the game. So is R.J. Harvey a good back? Yeah, I think he is. If he's Sean Payton's guy, and George and Sean Payton both identified him early and said, that's our dude, that's who we want, just like the Bo Nix thing with the quarterbacks, right? Bo Nix was the 6th quarterback, but he was Sean's favorite. Well, there were 7, 8, 9 running backs that could be available for the Broncos in that spot, but R.J. Harvey was the pick because I guess he is Sean's guy. So is R.J. Harvey one of those day one starters I'm talking about? Yes, he is. R.J. Harvey should come in here and be the starting running back. He's already better than Jaleel McLaughlin. I've had enough of Jaleel McLaughlin. I hope he has success at his next stop, but I'm done with Jaleel McLaughlin. Audric Estime, I'll still give him a little bit of an opportunity, but the next time he fumbles might just be the last time he fumbles for the Denver Broncos. But my feeling for what Sean wanted to do with this running back room is it's now R.J. Harvey, it's Audric Estime. I think Tyler Bidet is in this mix one way or the other. And let's figure out whether or not Blake Watson is more than just kind of a practice squad guy that comes up in case of an emergency. I know my homeboy Cecil Lammy, my radio partner, he's a big fan of Blake Watson. So I'm going to hold out some hope for Blake to be a contributor sooner rather than later. But I think this running back room up front is R.J. Harvey, Audric Estime. I think a lot of people are going to argue that Jaleel McLaughlin's there. Like I said, I'm done with him. I'd put Tyler Bidet in that spot and just get rid of Jaleel McLaughlin completely. So R.J. Harvey, that's the first day one starter. If you keep going with these Denver Broncos and we go to pick number 3, it is pick number 74 for them, Pat Bryant, wide receiver, Illinois. Now, Sean Payton said he's got Michael Thomas vibes. Talk about giving huge expectation for a kid that hadn't touched the field yet at the NFL level. Can he be a Michael Thomas? We'll see. Michael Thomas was a top-tier NFL wide receiver for about 2 or 3 years, maybe even 4, before injuries, and Sean ended up leaving and the whole system changed. You're putting a lot of pressure on a kid that is Pat Bryant. But can he be a wide receiver 2, really, because Court's number 1? But I'm talking about a starter from day one. Well, we got to talk about formations and what that looks like, because Cortland's going to be on the outside. What's Marvin Mims' new role? Is Marvin just a slot guy now? Trick sort of gadget guy, but's on the field more often than not? Because if he's a slot guy, not only can you utilize him in the middle of the field, try to use his speed against the nickel corner, You can still use him in some of those situations where you put him in motion and hand him the football, and he becomes a running threat with the ball in his hands, which we know how dangerous Marvin can be. So if that's the case, we are talking about your second day one starter being Pat Bryant there on the outside. And I wouldn't be opposed to that, depending on what we see out of Pat Bryant coming up at minicamp, and then, when training camp really ramps up and they'll do joint practices and all that stuff when you really get eyeballs on him. The only other name I think can potentially be a starter, and I'm very hesitant to say day number one because of Zach Allen, because of John Franklin Myers, because of Malcolm Roach. They brought back DJ Jones. It's Savion Jones, who's listed as an edge rusher out of LSU. I'm not sure that's where the Broncos see him as, maybe more of as an interior guy. Jonathan Cooper's not going to miss many reps. You know Nick Benito's not going to miss any reps. By the way, you got to make room for Jonah Ellis, who had 5 sacks as a rookie. You got to make room for DeAndre Tillman, who had 5 sacks as an undrafted rookie. So I'm not sure Savion Jones is that edge rusher that you may be thinking of him as, but he's still going to be a starter at some point, probably next year with spot duty in this year. Rotational guy. Somebody needs a rest, get ready to rush on third down. So you're in there on a second, run situation. That's what I see a Savion Jones as. Q Robinson from Alabama, again, another edge rusher. What are we doing with edge rushers? Why do you need 2 of them when you just paid Jonathan Cooper? You're about to pay Nick Benito. You have control of Jonah Ellis and Tillman for the next 4 years. I thought that was a very interesting pick right there. Maybe you went with a second back in that spot. Like at that spot, Q Robinson was picked in the 4th round, overall pick number 134. I'm now looking at the running back list here of picks in the 4th round. I mean, you could have got Dylan Sampson at that pick instead of Q Robinson. What would you prefer? A depth guy that might just work out, or Dylan Sampson, the Tennessee running back that is going to work out, and you would have had your 2-headed monster there with Dylan Sampson and the guy that they actually picked in RJ Harvey. Plus, I just like Samson because you get to do the half-baked thing, right? Samson Simpson, I stick by my story. And that's just fun. Why else would I be wearing this hat? Just fun. And they ruin the fun for us. So Q Robinson, yeah, I'm not necessarily thrilled or stoked on that one. And then in the 6th round, they picked a punter. A punter? You picked a punter in the draft? That's not cool, man. You could have got him as an undrafted free agent as well. Jeremy Crawshaw from the University of Florida. No disrespect, Jeremy. I don't even know who the heck you are. But I'm pretty sure you would have been there after Mr. Irrelevant was selected and the Broncos could have went and got his services. So out on Q Robinson, not a big fan of the punter pick. And then with their final pick, number 241 in round 7, they do address tight end. That was what I thought. I thought they'd get 2 running backs, and I thought they'd add 1 more tight end via the draft because they added Evan Ingram in free agency. But they added Caleb Lohner from Utah. Caleb Lohner's got 4 catches. They're all touchdowns. It's great. But that's what you're going to go off of? That's what you're going to do? I thought the last 3 picks were very, very questionable with the Denver Broncos. And heck, I'd love to eat my words. Maybe Q Robinson's outstanding. Makes me look like a fool. That'd be great. Maybe, I don't know, is there such thing as a great punter? I'm not going to go there. Maybe Lohner turns into this diamond in the rough kind of tight end, but I'm very hesitant to believe so. So I like the top 3, Barron, Harvey, Bryant. Down with those picks. Savion Jones, TBD. Let me see what he turns into and where he's playing on the football field to see what he is. But again, a 3rd round pick, that person should be turned into a starter by their 2nd year in the NFL. So we'll see if Savion can do that. Overall grade, if I'm feeling real nicey, like John Gruden would say, or being optimistic, I might give them a B-. I think I'm probably more in a C range because you focused everything defensively in free agency. And you grab 3 defensive players, 3 offensive players, and that punter that I talked about in the draft. I would have liked to see 1 more running back, and I would have liked to see a tight end picked at a better spot where you're not just throwing a dart at the board with Caleb Lohner. And that's what they're doing with that tight end. There's no guarantee that he's even on the roster when the 53-man roster gets announced. So I would have liked to see them prioritize that a little bit more, the position. And again, punter, you just absolutely do not lead. So I'm going to do it. I'm going to go with the C. If you wanted to get to a B, I wouldn't argue with you too much because I did give you the potential of 3 starters as soon as August to be from this draft. And that's pretty dang good from a guy like George Paton. So I'm going C. And my favorite pick of the bunch, and this is tough. The best player is Jahdae Barron because that guy's going to have a 15-year NFL career. I think for immediate impact, it's RJ Harvey. He's not going to hold a candle to what my dude Travion Henderson's going to do up there in New England. He'll be my great white buffalo. He'll be the one that got away. Always going to wonder what Travion Henderson could have been in orange and blue with the Denver Broncos. I go C, and I like RJ Harvey's chances to make a big impact in year number 1. What say you, Broncos country? Leave a comment, like, and subscribe while you're there, and I'll circle back and see what kind of report card we're giving the Denver Broncos. This has been Dover on Denver, and now I'm done.